All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily. It's all Brockton Caster. It is a Friday, getting ready for the Memorial Day weekend. A lot of chatter on the video stream about our little cooking contest we've got going this weekend. Joe, I noticed Tommy throws up the first comment there.
Let's go, Joe.
Because he goes to Tommy. But Jad is team Hot Legs. Jad commenting in there just the same. There's Jad. Thanks, everybody, by the way, for watching us. You can listen to us, of course, always on KFH, and we love and appreciate that. But you can now if you're, not by the radio or able to stream us or whatever. We do have this video feed that you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Glad to have you in both places. Glad to see everybody here. This contract for Patrick Mahomes, Tommy, there was a report from Florio that he suspects or expects this to get done. We've heard the chatter. Mahomes comes out this week now, and just to set it up, Patrick Mahomes soon, when whatever the deal Burrow and Herbert get, Mahomes will be like the 9th highest paid quarterback by guaranteed money or yearly salary or whatever. There's different ways to look at those contracts. I don't think it matters. So, it's interesting because we had that report and then it was like, is there really urgency on this? And that seemed odd, but, felt like – and the Chiefs have talked about it, that they want to get the deal done. But Patrick Mahomes comes out in OTAs this week to just sort of reestablish publicly that his priority is not to, make sure he's the highest paid quarterback. It's more about winning championships and legacy, which he's in a unique position to do. But he also talks about his desire and need for everybody else to continue the bar in the right direction, like for the other quarterbacks in the league. Mahomes always, he just always gets it right in how he approaches and talks about this stuff. Because, and I think there's a ton of truth to that. There is pressure when you're in a union like that to continue to, raise salaries for your peers, which he could absolutely do. There's also this, loyalty to the Chiefs he has. And the other elephant in the room, Tommy, is Patrick Mahomes is going to earn more than most quarterbacks because he's the most marketable athlete in America right now. And so it is a different situation than a lot of these guys face. Do you see, Joe Burrow in a lot of ads at this point? Is he in everything? You know what I mean? Like, it is different. You see Lamar Jackson in every ad that you can see. Like, it's different for these guys. So, different priorities for different people, and I totally get it. I've contended, and I brought this up to the national audience last weekend. I'll bring it up again tomorrow when I jump on there. I think there's a real chance here that there is something unique about this next Mahomes contract, like that we've never seen before. I think somebody was floating around, it may have been Florio again on Pat McAfee yesterday, floating around the idea of a percentage of the salary cap and Burrow being a candidate to do something like that. That makes sense to me. But I think with Mahomes, it gets bigger. Mahomes has an interest in owning pro teams, right? He's a minority owner of the Royals. He and his wife own the women's soccer franchise there, the Current. I think there's a real chance there could be some sort of partnership at an organizational level between the Chiefs and Mahomes that could become that thing in his next contract that's unique and allows these things to happen. Now, I don't know the rules of that in the NFL.
You got to be real careful about that.
Well, but remember when the Dolphins and Brady got in trouble, really the Dolphins, that was a part of that, right? Like the whole report was that he was going to go be their quarterback and be a part owner. What I mean about the rules, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just don't know how it affects the salary cap. So like let's say Mahomes comes in and they're like, yeah, we want to make you a part of the ownership group or give you a stake in the team and all these things. How do you evaluate that, right, against the salary cap? That's what I'm not real sure of and where that could get a little dicey. But I think that if there's any player in sports, right, that any pro team would like to make sure they never have any other part of any other organization, Mahomes is right at the top of that list. And we see it all the time, right? Think about New England. They let Tom Brady go to Tampa and win a Super Bowl. Think about Indianapolis. They let Peyton Manning go to Denver and win a Super Bowl. Okay, that kind of sucks for them a little bit. You don't want that to happen if you're the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. You've got it with George Brett, right? You got it with George Brett and the Royals. You want the same sort of thing. So I don't know how that looks. I think it's unique, but I think it's reassuring, again, if you're a Chiefs fan, to hear Mahomes say those things. It's championships. Like, look, I there are responsibilities I have to, to get this deal and do. But at the forefront of it all will be this cohesion with the front office to make sure they've got the flexibility they need to do what they need to do.
One thing we know about Patrick Mahomes is that he's always going to say the right thing and do the right thing. That's just the way that he is. It's the way that he's built. It's the way that he has acted in his entire career in Kansas City. And so there's no reason to doubt him or his intentions, because he's never shown a reason to do that. He's never shown a reason otherwise. So when he talks about legacy being the most important thing to him and making sure that there's money in the budget to have talented players around him to win championships, I believe him, because he's never given me any reason not to believe him when he's talking about those sort of things. Now, the other thing that I can say is that the Chiefs organization and Clark Hunt and Brett Veach, they've never given me any indication that they aren't fully committed in making sure that they take care of this transformational quarterback that the Chiefs have had on their roster for the last 6 seasons, and they want to have him on their roster his entire career, right? So, nobody has a crystal ball, so you don't know what's going to happen a decade from now or 15 years from now or whatever that is. But what I do know is that at least here in the short term, there will be a new contract for Patrick Mahomes, and it will elevate him, to a level that we haven't seen in the NFL whenever that time comes, whether that's here, before this season or, sometime in the future. It will reset the market. That's just the way that it is. Doesn't matter when it's going to come down, but it is nice to hear from Mahomes that, at least, from his voice, that in his mind, that's not the most important thing on the table right now.
It is such a slippery slope, right? I'm sure Indianapolis, when Peyton Manning was 28 years old, would have said the same thing. And New England, when Tom Brady was 28 years old, would have said the same thing, right? But Peyton Manning got hurt, and Tom Brady got old, and then there had to be uncomfortable. Look at what just happened with Aaron Rodgers. There has to be uncomfortable conversations. That's where it's a bit of a slippery slope, right? And yeah, the Chiefs have navigated it wonderfully now, but the success on the field has made it easy to do that, right?
I just don't understand what the point is.
Success on the field isn't there.
I don't understand what the point is of getting, and I'm not saying you're getting worked up, but just in general, getting worked up about what might happen 10 years from now. I understand putting together a contract that takes care of him and the organization for as long as possible, resets the market, whatever, all of that, I'm totally on board with, because you've got to pay this guy who has been the catalyst for, this dynasty that's in place. But also, I kind of am interested in living in the moment and living in this season and, next season or whatever, as opposed to 10 years from now. We don't know what's going to happen.
What the reason it's important and the reason it's relevant is because there is this mutual desire to not hamstring the franchise's ability to spend money on other players. So if they're trying to accomplish all of these goals, for Mahomes, it's taking care of his peers and what they'll be able to bring on the open market, right? For the Chiefs, it's not hamstringing the franchise financially. And Mahomes has that interest there as well, because he wants to win as many championships as he can. Okay, so all of those things, right, are in play here. So creativity is going to have to come into play if all of those things can be accomplished. That's why it's interesting. That's why I think there's going to be some creative element involved in it that makes this different than other deals that we've seen. Because the simple answer for everybody, right, is for the Chiefs just to say, Mahomes, you're going to be the highest paid quarterback. But they don't want that, and neither does Mahomes. Not in that way, right? And it's different for different guys. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, we think, and Justin Herbert, we think, as they do, their top priority is going to be to make as much money as they possibly can. Right now. I mean, that's that's going to be the priorities for their deals, we think, because history tells us it is. It isn't very often where you get this situation. The two that I can remember the most are Romo and Brady, and I'm sure there have been other guys that have done it, but those two jump to the front of my mind as guys who have done creative things in order to allow the franchise to spend and do these things. So Mahomes clearly wants to do that. But what is that? What does that look like? Is it just basically redoing the current deal that they have with more money involved because the cap's gone up? I suppose that's on the table, right? Because they just restructured Mahomes this year to free up money. That's the contract. Like the Romo and Brady contracts just kept getting restructured to free up more money. They allowed that flexibility. That's what Mahomes' deal he's currently on does. Maybe they just redo that. I don't know. But I just have this feeling that there's going to be some element of creativity involved in it, that because the Chiefs are going to want to, sort of extend that back to Mahomes, because Mahomes is extending them a favor here. He's extending himself a favor, to try to win championships, but he's extending them a favor in not making sure that he makes $60 million a year right now, because he could easily do that, and they would say, yes, sir, let's sign that deal tomorrow if that's what we really need to do. So I don't know. I don't know what happens here. It is going to be very interesting. I think the one thing that's changed in the last 24 hours or so is the sense of urgency, because I don't get that sense from Mahomes that there really is any sense of urgency. It needs to get done. There is a timing element involved, but that report that it's like a clock is ticking to the start of the next season, I don't know. I don't think it's kind of like Chris Jones. Like, they're going to let the market play out and then get after it and do what they need to do. But I don't sense any urgency on a new Mahomes deal.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the important thing, right, is that you are making sure that you're in lockstep. And I know that I've heard Brett Veach on the record talking about that they have an open line of communication with Mahomes and his representatives and all of that, and we've talked before about, isn't it Lee Steinberg that represents Mahomes? We've talked about how successful he's been as far as,
Yep.
the deals that he's made and that sort of thing. And so it sounds to me that there is as positive of a relationship that there possibly can be between Mahomes, his representatives, and the franchise. And as long as that continues, and as long as there's an open line of communication, as long as, priorities are in place on both sides and everybody is working together towards a common goal, then I've got no concerns whatsoever about the timeline on this, about, the terms of the deal, anything like that. And I would argue that the majority of the time that you've got situations that start to get messy, and I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers in that situation. All of a sudden, you had the player, the representatives, and the organization no longer on the same page, no longer communicating well, or really even communicating at all, and then things break down. And I think that's one thing that Mahomes and Veach have made very sure that they are doing at a high level, is communicating constantly. And so, I would imagine that if Mahomes went to Veach or Steinberg went to Veach and said, all right, the time is now. We need to get this done right now. It's important to us to get this done and get it taken care of. They would probably figure out a way to get it done. I just don't get that indication that that's really happening right now.
And all of those things exist, and they do, and it takes a certain type of personality and Patrick Mahomes to be able to do that. The only thing that's got to, I think, just sort of stick in the back of our minds that can be filed away is if the success goes away, so does this friendliness, I think. And I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not saying I do. Just saying the only place I feel urgency is from a home side is like anything can happen. And if we're not, going to AFC championships every year and all of these things, these mutual interests begin to change a little bit. And that is, a place where if you're Mahomes, you got to pay. And he did say, look, he said, like, I've already made enough money that I don't ever need to make any more money and I'll be fine. And that matters, right? Because I think not everybody feels that way. I would feel that way, I think, if I were in Mahomes' position, but he does feel a responsibility to his peers. But maybe that concern of it may not always be this way. Maybe that's not as big a concern for Mahomes, and that factors in too. But it will be fascinating. I think far more fascinating than Herbert and Burrow, who we think will just get paid a whole lot of money. How the next Mahomes deal is structured will be really, really interesting if you're a nerd for those things like we are. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. Sports Daily, plenty more to come. The IHOP hotline is open. 869-1240 is that number. More Sports Daily coming right back right after this.